good morning, good afternoon. Thank you for joining Inscope's webinar to demo our Agentic Disclosure Checklist. This is the very first time that we're demoing this product. It is in beta release right now, and we're really excited to show you what the Agentic Disclosure Checklist looks like. I'm Mary. I'm co-founder and CEO of Inscope. Joining me today on the webinar is Kelsey Gootnick, who is my co-founder and the COO and the head of product at Inscope. As a quick intro to Inscope, Inscope is focused on and frees accounting and audit teams from the manual grind of financial statements. With that, we also automated the disclosure checklist as it's a core component of the financial statement preparation and verification process. I will hand it over to Kelsey to discuss why we built the disclosure checklist.
Thanks, Mary. Okay. So before we jump into the demo, I wanted to quickly talk about why we built the automated disclosure checklist. One thing we consistently hear, and I'm sure you are all aware of, is that the disclosure checklist is extremely time-consuming and tedious. It's not just the sheer number of questions that have to be answered, but to do it well, every applicable answer has to be tied to the financial statements, supported with documentation, and then reviewed. Across our customers that we work with, they conservatively estimate it takes anywhere from 4 to 8 hours on every engagement. And the challenge really comes down to three things. First, the checklist is disconnected from the financial statements. So preparers and reviewers are constantly flipping back and forth between the two. Second, every engagement team completes it a little bit differently, which makes it difficult to create a consistent firm-wide standard. And finally, when someone comes back later for quality review, they often have to reconstruct why a conclusion was ultimately reached. So we asked ourselves, what if we could automate the mechanical work while leaving the accounting judgment with the user? That really became the foundation for how we built the automated disclosure checklist. Our goal wasn't to replace professional judgment, it was to eliminate the repetitive work that happens before that judgment is made. So our solution is that Penny reads the financials, identifies which questions are applicable in the disclosure checklist, drafts an initial response, and links every answer back to the supporting evidence that it found. The result is simple. You as a reviewer stay in control, every answer is traceable, and every engagement follows a more consistent process across the firm. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Mary, who's going to show you exactly what that experience looks like in the product.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelsey. All right, let me share my screen and show the product. Here we go. Before we jump into the disclosure checklist demo, I do want to give a quick overview and for anyone who's familiar with a refresher on Inscope's financial statement solution. Inscope is a comprehensive financial statement preparation and review solution. So as you can see here, this is Inscope's primary interface. It'll look and feel like Microsoft Word, but it's not. It's built specifically for the purpose of preparation of financial statements. What makes it specific for preparation of financial statements? So Inscope has formatting algorithm when your teams are working in Inscope that automatically makes it presentation ready for financial statements. Believe it or not, up to 20% of time in financial statements preparation goes into formatting tasks. And with Inscope's formatting algorithm and style guide, your teams can really focus on what matters, which is the financial statements content and not the presentation, not the column width, not the dollar signs. Inscope is a collaborative solution as well, which operates as a single source of truth. What that means is I can work with my team to at the same time simultaneously leave comments for them, have them updated, review the balance sheet at RIA, and we work together with each other as opposed to making it a single sort of single player experience. Today, for the most part, financial statements are a single player experience where a preparer prepares it, saves down a draft, and a reviewer comes in, opens a draft, and then sends a copy of the email, a copy of the financial statements via email to the client. That experience completely goes away with Inscope, where we become a single source of collaborative truth. With Inscope, we also don't want our teams to worry about losing or not saving down a draft. So you can see here, we're constantly saving down drafts of the document in the background, allowing teams to work with peace of mind, knowing where their draft is at. Inscope also allows you to compare drafts, so you don't have to take it into an Adobe compare or to a Microsoft Word compare process. Um, Finally, Inscope also allows you to share the financial statements draft with your client without having to go through these email drafts back and forth. I don't know if teams still do this. As a senior associate, I spent quite a bit of time moving comments back and forth between drafts of the document. We wanted to avoid that so that our teams can focus on, again, the actual higher value work. Um, Inscope also makes it really simple for our teams to be able to review the financial statements. So you can call upon your AI agents to go ahead and review the financial statements for footing. So you can see here, I've gone ahead and run the calculation check so that the AI agents complete footing and cross-footing calculations for me, looking for inconsistencies across the document. So, if there are inconsistencies between the face of the financials and the footnotes, the agents catch it for you before my financial statements are finalized. We also have the ability to review for missing disclosures, and this is separate from the disclosure checklist, which I'll get into in a couple of minutes. But you have the ability for your agents to go through the document, review the face of the financials, and compare it to the footnotes and see if there are any missing disclosures, and even provide guidance to the team preparing it so they understand why they need to update certain disclosures. So here's an example where I have a new accounting pronouncements policy section that needs to be updated. So my AI agents provide me with guidance as to how to update it. So I need to remove topic 805 because it's already been adopted. I need to retain topic 740 because it's relevant still for this year. And I have ASU 2024-04 that's not relevant to my company, so I don't need to include this. And so your AI agents, these AI agents help your teams and guide them through the process. Um, all right. So without waiting too long, I'm going to jump into our disclosure checklist product. So the Agentic Disclosure Checklist, this is the very first time we're demoing it. And so excited to share with you the checklist. The checklist cannot be separate from the financial statement. So what we found is today, for the most part, it's a separate exercise. The teams complete the financial statements as a check the box item towards the end of the process, pull up the checklist, potentially roll it forward from the prior year, and then complete it as a quick final exercise. We think of the checklist and the financial statements as one single workflow. And so from directly where your financial statements are, you can launch your checklist. So here we go. As you can see here, I have my checklist. So this is my disclosure checklist that's launched and it's connected to my financial statements. Have the ability to go ahead. So the first thing with the disclosure checklist is we need our teams to complete 10 questions. So they need to respond to 10 questions that allow us to pick the right checklist and complete the checklist. And so here we go. So all I need to do is provide responses to these 10 questions. What type of entity is this? In my case, I'm going to pick a private company, but you do have the option for not-for-profit, employee benefit plan, public company, SEC filers. But in this case, I'm going to pick a private company. It's prepared in conformity with US GAAP. These are annual audited financial statements with comparative year presented. I have the fiscal year end set to 12/31. Reporting currency is USD. And I also need to pick the industry so the checklist can be further refined. And then it's a C corporation. So that's really the 10 questions that the team needs to answer. Would take them anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes to do that. Once that's done, I can then kick off my scoping exercise. So this is where the agent is going through the financial statements and these 10 questions that the team responded to and completes a scoping exercise. So here we go. So in this case, the agent has completed the scoping exercise and reviewed all of the new ASUs and identified if they need to be adopted. If they have been adopted, yes, no. And so what you'll also notice is that the agent provides confidence score as part of these responses. So as I can see, there are some scores where the agent is not completely confident, where it leaves a medium score. And then the rest of it, it has high degree of confidence in the responses it's provided. So I can see here, I agree to all of these responses. If I don't, I can go ahead and change them. But I feel good about these responses. So I'm going to go ahead and click next. And so that takes me into the full set of scoping questions. And I can again see the AI agent's response to all of the questions. One of the differences you'll notice with Inscope's Agentic Disclosure Checklist versus Legacy is we're not rolling this forward year over year. What we find is when you roll forward year over year, there's a potential for carrying mistakes that were made 5 years ago into the next disclosure checklist. So in this case, we're starting from a clean slate every year based on the checklist and the new and the financial statements as the basis. So in this case, I can go through and identify all of the scoping questions and how the AI agent has responded to them. Again, I would focus on anywhere there's medium or low confidence responses. You can also filter by the topics. In this case, I can filter by the topic, or I can filter by whether the responses were yes or no. No would be a good place to focus and see if anything was scoped out that I expected to be scoped in. All right. Once I'm comfortable with the scoping questions and how they've been responded to, I can click next. And so this allows me to take a minute to review the details and confirm whether the entity information is accurate, the ASC adoption questions have been answered correctly, as well as the remaining scoping questions have been answered correctly. Once I am comfortable with the entire scoping exercise, I'm given an option to confirm and move into the final stage, which is where the AI agent is going through all of the questions and responding to them. For the purposes of this demo, we've sped up the process. What I mean is the responses will be populated faster, but in the actual exercise, it does take 10 to 15 minutes. So user can come in, complete the scoping exercise or respond to the scoping questions and hit next, and they can leave the workflow, go back to their financial statements, go back to working on something else, and then they'll be alerted via email when the AI agent has completed the disclosure checklist. So in this case, my AI agent has completed the disclosure checklist in its entirety. So you can see here, out of 4,296, which is so many questions, out of 4,296 topics or questions, 1,817 were relevant and they were scoped in based on the scoping exercise that I did. Out of the 1,817 topics or items, the AI agent went through and responded. 620 were yes, there were 670 no responses, and there's 580 NA responses in this checklist. So I can see them at a glance by topic very quickly. What were the relevant items, how many yeses and how many nos and NAs were responded. I could also switch out the view and go to this table view where I can filter for a specific topic. I can filter for yes, no, or NA responses. The AI agent also will flag to me if it was unable to answer any of the items. So in this case, the AI agent has answered all of the items, so I don't need to review them. We also keep track of who edited or updated the response to the disclosure checklist item. In this case, all of the responses were generated by Penny, the AI agent, and there were none actually edited by the user. But if the user edits it, so I can technically go in and change it to no or NA, it'll show that I made the edit to that specific disclosure checklist item. Now let's go through this. So I have the ability to go through the document and look at every single line item on the checklist. But what makes Inscope's agentic checklist really powerful is not just that the agent is completing this for you, but also you have the ability to click into any of the checklist item that was yes and be taken specifically to the location on the financial statements. There we go. That where that specific item was disclosed. So I have this deeply integrated tie-in between the financial statements and the checklist. The checklist feeds into the financial statements, and the financial statements is anchored in the checklist. So as you can see here on the right, Penny, your AI agent, is who populated this checklist. If I do change any of these responses, you will notice that that changed to my name. So that's indicating if a user has overridden it. And so now when I go to review and filter for user, you'll notice that it'll show this one checklist item that I edited personally, but the remaining have all been completed by my AI agent. I also have the ability to go ahead and leave comments to my team members or to myself. So there's this one specific checklist item. If I wanted a team member to update something, I can go ahead and leave a comment to Ria saying, take a look, not disclosed correctly. And so the disclosure checklist also becomes a collaborative experience. Now, we also have this ability for the teams to maintain their audit trail. So you can see here the entire life cycle journey of this checklist, starting from, when I created the disclosure checklist and I've updated the entity details. I've gone ahead and Penny has gone ahead and proposed the initial scoping questions. Penny is your AI agent. And then from there, the scoping questions have been updated and I have reviewed the checklist. So you can see really who's touched this checklist from both your AI agent, but also from the user standpoint. You'll also notice that I have the ability to manage the status of the disclosure checklist from draft, which is now in draft. I can move it into review mode, which then allows the reviewer to come in and review this document. Once I'm ready to finalize it, I can move it into the finalized state, at which point the disclosure checklist is locked from further edit. When I'm ready to complete this and finalize it, I am moving it into finalize, and then I have the ability to export this checklist. So let's say I want to bring it back into my audit engagement binders. I can go ahead and export the checklist in a CSV format and then save that down into my engagement binder. Right now, I am ready to exit because I've completed the checklist, and we expect the checklist completion to take anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes based on what was flagged for review. So going ahead and saving and exiting it brings me back to my financial statements where I can make sure that all the checklist items have been addressed. All right, that is pretty much the experience of the disclosure checklist. As you can see here, the agent is doing all of the work. The user comes in purely for the purposes of review. And one thing that if I can take away from this demo is really the financial statements and the checklist are one single interconnected workflow, and that's what makes this powerful. We don't expect, anytime we see the disclosure checklist disconnected or separately prepared from the financial statements, it just becomes less meaningful and less valuable. All right, I am going to stop sharing and return back to a few questions that we've prepared that help answer any questions that you may have. But let me just look in chat. I think we do have a question in chat.
So there are a few questions. So the first one is really, does this only cover US GAAP? Is there an option to also cover IFRS? This also goes along with an earlier question that we got, which was each accounting firm has its own version of disclosure checklist. How does this compare to those checklists? Will auditor accept the Inscope checklist? So happy to take that one. So currently, the checklist that we have today is only US GAAP. We are working with Thomson Reuters to license their disclosure checklist. And so we will have a very broad checklist available, including IFRS and other industry-specific checklists. In regards to the accounting firm question, so we have talked to a number of audit partners at all the big four, and there is no specific requirement for them for you to complete their checklist. The only requirement is that you internally complete a complete checklist, which has been, kind of peer reviewed and does meet the industry standards, which this does. So something definitely to discuss with your audit partners, but you technically don't have to complete their checklist.
Yeah, so I think it'd be good for us, Kelsey, to discuss like what frameworks will be covered, like titles or frameworks of checklists.
Yeah, so good question. So currently, US GAAP, private and public filers, as well as affordable housing, construction, financial services. Um, we are looking to add IFRS as well. Any others, Mary, that I'm missing?
I don't know if you mentioned not for profit, maybe
Not for profit.
CDP.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Good question. One of the, how long does it take to run? So this, I do want to preface, like how quickly you saw it run in the demo was set up specifically for demo purposes. It does take longer to run the disclosure checklist without, like the user is not involved in it, but maybe Kelsey, you can speak to like how long does it take to complete the scoping for the agent and then the main like set of questions.
Yeah, so as I think Mary mentioned earlier, it does take about 10 to 15 minutes to run the scoping process and then another kind of 10 to 15 minutes to run the full disclosure checklist. As Mary mentioned, you can just run it and then step away, do something else, and then come back to it. It's meant to really kind of operate in the background while you're doing other things. Um, I think I know that might not sound super, super quick, but it is doing a lot of processing. There is a lot of work going on behind the scenes. We definitely optimize for accuracy here versus speed. And so I think it's just critical to understand that this is a very, very large chunk of work, and the system is going through it very thoroughly.
Another question that we've gotten is, can I use the disclosure checklist without InScope's financial statements solution?
So currently, you're not able to. The way that the checklist is powered is it has access to your financial statements via the Inscope platform. And so you do need to have the financials within Inscope to be able to run the disclosure checklist.
Um, I did show the export really quickly, but maybe Kelsey, we can talk about what can be exported and in what format is the export. Like, once the disclosure checklist is completed in InScope, how do I like maintain that like, evidence?
Yeah, so as Mary mentioned, that whole disclosure checklist is downloaded into a CSV format. I personally really like that format because it still gives me the ability to filter things and review things very, very quickly, but it is the full checklist with each of those columns that are displayed within the checklist within that CSV. So you'll have all the citation references, all the notes associated with the responses.
Yeah, we don't have PDF export today. It's primarily CSV for now in this iteration.
Yeah.
Um, Another question would be, when is this available for me to use? Is this like, available for purchase right now?
Yep. So currently we are going through this with a select group of customers as part of beta testing. We are hoping to open it up more broadly. I think mid to end of August is when it should be available for the general purposes.
Great. Let's see if there's anything else. Okay, let me see. There might be a couple of questions here. Um, there were 670 no answers. I'm assuming that means a disclosure was applicable and missing from the financial statements. I realized this was a demo. Yeah, Jason, this was like a demo purposes. So I will need to go back and look at like where the no answers were. But the disclosure checklist agent, the mandate is to respond to every single question and indicate confidence level. So if it doesn't have quite high level of confidence, it'll indicate the confidence level. So every question should be answered. One other question, Kelsey, that we've gotten is, can I roll forward? a disclosure checklist. I'm currently used to, I think Natsuko just asked. I currently use the prior disclosure checklist, roll it forward, update it where necessary. Are we doing that here? And if not, why?
Yeah, so the current version, we cannot ingest your prior period checklist and do a comparative that way. So this is a full net new run for year one. But when you roll forward with an Inscope your document, you will also be rolling forward that checklist. The system is still going to process everything net new, but it will have the ability to flag things that have changed year over year. So it's another way to perform that review, would be able to see very quickly what scoping questions changed year over year and also what ultimate disclosure question results changed year over year. So that is functionality you will see in the year two results.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the reason why, I mean, when we're doing it, when as a human, like preparer, as I'm doing this, rolling forward is the easiest way for me to build the disclosure checklist, complete the disclosure checklist. But while the agents are doing this, I can have everything start from scratch and do a fresh take and then compare it to prior disclosure checklist as like another control measure. There, another question. Yep. All right. I know we're at time, and so thank you everyone for joining thank you everyone for joining today. And maybe Beth, you can, yeah. So if you're an Inscope customer, do reach out to your customer success manager to talk about using Inscope's disclosure checklist. If you're exploring Inscope, happy to walk you through a full demo, and there's a QR code for you to book a meeting. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.